Do y'all remember when we first showed you this? It's a drinking craze that's going all around spring break. If you never heard of it, it is called the Borg Challenge. And what Borg stand for is Blackout Rage Gallon. How it works is you purchase a full gallon sized jug, then you just mix it with water and booze. Basically, it's a drink that'll make you drink the gallon of booze until you pass out. College kids are getting involved in this, as you're about to see from this report. It may not be a spring break unlike any other. Take a look.
It's the latest drinking craze.
Pirates Borg for me.
College kids are partying with gallon-sized jugs that they call a Borg. Borg stands for Blackout Rage Gallon.
My name is Captain Borg. I eat naughty Borg.
And too many of them are winding up in the ER. Last weekend, 46 students at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst were hospitalized during a pre-St. Patrick's Day Borg Challenge.
Just in Borg, man.
It could be, a recipe for disaster if you're drinking a lot of alcohol in large volumes over a quick period of time.
Good morning, spring breakers.
And now with spring break underway,
Bob's Burgers.
many are concerned that Borging could promote binge drinking.
Morgan.
How-to videos are all over TikTok.
I'm going to show you how I make my Borg.
They buy gallon-sized water jugs like this, then add vodka or rum, a color sweetener, and an electrolyte supplement to help avoid hangovers.
I add some liquid IV so we don't get hungover.
Shake it up.
Taste test.
They even write clever slogans on the jars. This woman recorded herself seemingly getting more and more wasted.
I'm in I'm halfway through my Borg.
I finished my Borg.
Dr. Tucker Woods of Lenox Hill Hospital in New York says it's important to know your limits when you're mixing a Borg.
Even though the name is Blackout Rage Gallon, that has its shock value. That should never be your intention. I want to make that clear from the get-go.
Ooh. The less alcohol, the better. And he says drinking too much too fast can have dire consequences.
It don't happen during spring break this year. And a lot of people have been hospitalized over this. And like I said last season, YouTube videos have popped up concerning this issue. If you don't believe me, we talked about this last season. And if I gotta scroll down for the next few seconds of this, I will. Oh, here it is. This is where I talked about it.
Welcome back to the second half of the show. There was now another case of bullying. Just 56 minutes ago before I got started, I got a notification from YouTube about spring break canceled because of colder weather. Now a bad day to end the week with a stabbing that happened at Francisco Middle School. Yeah, this happened today. Here's the very latest, as we know.
I think this is it.
Hi, welcome to the show.
That's probably not it. But you probably get the picture. We talked about it last season, and let me tell you, it's not worth it. You cannot be doing these blackout rages. It's common sense that tells you I shouldn't be doing this. I don't want to get blacked out. Throw that gallon away. Avoid alcohol. Drink some soda. Sure, it may cause you diabetes, but you probably get the picture. Soda is your alcohol. Coca-Cola is your beer. Mountain Dew, Pepsi is your whiskey. Hey, you get the picture. And you probably do if you were here. And if you were here, you'd probably know. But what you have to understand here is that binge drinking, I mean, college is going to make it illegal to drink. Drinking should be illegal. That's why we have underage limits to drink. It is illegal to drink in college. College, you have policies where no one drinks. Nobody should drink, period. And if people do, pay the price for it. And if we teach college kids not to drink, then they probably won't understand. And they probably will be passed down from Borg. Still to come, a young woman and a bunch of women say they've been sexually harassed by this man. But first things first, public punishment. Is it right or is it wrong? A revisit to last season, like we talked about in yesterday's show, so stay with us. Last season, we talked about public shaming. If you don't know what that is, basically, public shaming is basically to where you go out in public and you get punished for everything. And as you're about to see in a few minutes from this clip, that's how it just means. Here's a sneak. If you missed the clip from last season, here's a clip.
You ever hear of public shame? Good morning.
Here's a clip of when I talked about it.
Good morning. You ever hear of public shaming or public humiliation? According to Wikipedia, public humiliation or public shaming is a form of punishment whose main feature is dishonoring or disgracing a person, usually an offender or a prisoner, especially in a public place. It was regularly used as a form of judicially sanctioned punishment in previous centuries, and is still practiced in different means in the modern era. Public humiliation exists in many forms. In general, a criminal sentenced to one of the many forms of this punishment could be expected to be placed in a central public and paying the price for it. Is it a good discipline tool, or is it just making kids act out more? So let's start by looking at the top 10 shamings of the internet that ruin people's lives. And you may be thinking about what I'm thinking. We're not trying to make people go on the street to sign saying, I hate girls, so-and-so. She started a sexual affair with then President Bill Clinton. We've heard her talk, but it has to stop. People have to use social media. Imagine skipping school because they and mother had the police had to make you sweep the streets. When we return, you're going to meet those kids who had a great lesson in skipping school with some options involved. Please stay with us. If you just joined us, we're talking about public shaming or public humiliation. It's a form of discipline.
So like I talked about, it's a form of discipline for children. So they go out and help out the community. But what I want to do is show you some clips like I have not talked about, including this video clip which you're about to see. Imagine skipping school and a police officer catches you, and you as a parent found out about it. And so they would make you armed with shirts, brooms, and dustpans to go sweep the community. As you're about to see, some people agree and some people didn't agree. Take a look.
Mom, show everybody this is what happens when we skip school.
Richard Lumley Jr. is Shannon Haswell's 12-year-old son. She approved of the public discipline and some of her own.
Oh no, you're punished off the bike for 2 weeks. Everything's gone. No Xbox, no bicycle, all gone.
Richard and his friend Corey Myers were sweeping the streets of Ambridge today. They skipped school, but both wound up getting a lesson in obedience, and it drew lots of attention.
Did you learn your lesson?
No.
Matthew.
Donated by the police department, the boys went out armed with brooms, dustpans, and t-shirts declaring their disobedience under police supervision.
I figured instead of sending them home to watch TV because they're both suspended from school, I figured we'd come out here and clean the street a little bit.
They asked if I felt this was appropriate, and yes, I do.
Don't bother digging through the bushes. Just get this.
In fact, it was Shannon who called police after learning her son never made it to school. Officers found the boys about mid-morning near an abandoned building.
Have you learned a lesson today?
Yeah,
What is it?
not to skip school anymore.
What about you, Corey?
Not to ditch school anymore.
A break in the action for lunch for these two 12-year-olds while they have a heart-to-heart talk with Ambridge officer Mike Natali about why it's never a good idea to skip school.
In-school suspension does nothing for kids. Right now, they're more embarrassed than anything.
In Ambridge, Alan Jennings, Channel 11 News.
People think the school suspension does nothing. It teaches them. It really teaches them right from wrong. I never been in school suspension, but believe me, if I was, I'd talk to you about it. But if you don't believe me, I wasn't. I was a good boy in school. Listen, follow the rules. Never skip class. Never participated in senior ditch day. Got 2 tickets to the ice race. You don't believe me? Start asking my old my old assistant principal. Man, went to the bathroom, got a hall pass. Left for the bathroom, got a hall pass. Went to the bathroom, got permission, but I turned out okay. But for these kids, they probably didn't. You think this public shaming is just getting out of hand? Wait till you see what a boss does to one of his employees. Once you see what a boss does to a thief, instead of locking him up, made him do public shaming. A punishment with a sign. Well, that's the way we return. Let's do this. We're talking about public shaming. Is it right or wrong to go out in the street with a sign saying you stole something you weren't proud of it? Middle of the world, we're going to show you a clip from the doctors talking about public shaming, whether it's right or wrong. I'm going to show you this next story that involves a teen and a boss. The boss made the teen go out in the heat, the sweltering heat, holding up a sign saying, I stole it and I didn't like it. But, is it right? But take a look at what happened.
For 4 hours today, Mark Anthony Doyle stood on this Montgomery County corner. His sign says, I stole and lied to my boss. This is to keep my head right. The 17-year-old was also forced to wear a pink shirt and lipstick.
I said, look, man, I said, you have 2 options. You can either deal with Montgomery County, go to jail, or this is what I come up with.
Brent Franklin owns a local construction company, and Mark Anthony has worked for him for the last year. This summer, he invited the teen to live with him so he could mentor him, help him get his life on track, and help him save money. Franklin says Mark Anthony has had a troubled childhood.
And I wanted to help him out, and he worked his butt off for me.
But after a few days out of town, Franklin says he returned home to find a damaged Rolex watch and several $1,000s worth of high-end items missing. He says Mark Anthony not only stole from him, but then lied about it. And this is his punishment.
I earned it. I shouldn't have stole. I shouldn't have lied.
I think he's a good kid, I think he just made a mistake, and, this is just going to be a tough lesson for him to learn.
And tonight, Brent tells us he is still going to allow Mark Anthony to work for him and gain his trust back. We're live in Montgomery County. I'm Jennifer Bauer, KPRC, Channel 2 News.
Jennifer, thank you. As you might imagine,
It was for 4 hours. I could just work those hours and holding up a sign with my band. Nah, I'm not going to get into that. Alright. Here's one you think you might like. involves parents and kids.
A single mother says she's at her wit's end with her children's behavior, and she says that discipline isn't working. So she's trying a new tactic, one that anyone driving by on 132nd and Grover can see. KETV Newswatch 7's Marla Raby is live here in the Newsplex with that story.
Christina Wilcox says she's tried it all and that her kids still won't behave. So she has them holding signs at the busy intersection saying what they've done wrong. Now she hopes by having them stand out on the streets, they'll learn a lesson that they won't forget.
They'll learn by embarrassment. They'll learn.
Christina Wilcox sits and watches her children serve their punishment at the corner of 132nd Street and Grover.
I've tried grounding them and disciplining them in every other form and way, and this is the only way that I can see to get through them.
She says I'll never have a girlfriend. I can't respect my mom.
7-year-old Mason is being punished for stealing.
He's starting down the wrong road of thieving and then lying about it. He's thieved from a couple of friends from a store before, and I just don't want him to proceed.
Christina says 5-year-old Elizabeth is following in her big brother's footsteps, so she holds a sign too.
And then they're not going to want to do it again, so there'll be no more lying and no more thieving.
Some drivers think she's got the right idea.
But someone called.
Others don't.
You're a horrible parent.
Christina says everyone's got the right to their own opinion, but she says she doesn't know what else to do.
I mean, it's our parents' responsibility, but timeouts, I'm a single mom of 3, and I work full-time and everything else, so timeouts and everything else don't always work.
But does embarrassment do the trick?
It doesn't bother me standing out here doing this.
Dustin says he's not fazed by the punishment, but admits it's got him thinking.
Well, I've been trying to work on being more respectful and not yelling at my mom and not arguing with her.
Now, the kids were out holding those signs for about 45 minutes yesterday and then about an hour this evening. Christina says this is the last time they're going to be holding those signs. She says she thinks they've got the message.
All right, Marla, thank you.
You're welcome.
I wouldn't even do that. That's enough of this. I want to show you. I want to ask the question at the end, later in the broadcast, but we got another story to talk about. Coming up, this woman says she was sexually harassed by this man. And a bunch of women say it happened to them. They quit, and now they're coming forward to tell their story. And they had an ally. The hostile environment story won't want to mess from Sarah James. Stay with us. Sexual harassment. It's always in the news these days. You hear about it. You hear about it in every story. You hear about it from your friends and your neighbors, and even from your local community. But what about at work? But what about your workplace? Your boss touches you, as a woman, your boss touches you very inappropriately. You dog it down in your journal. You dog it down in your diary. You share it with your friends. And they tell you to report this. But you're afraid that if you report it, you might get in trouble. As I first told you last season, this woman and a bunch of others came forward telling their story about one man, the president, the chairman of the board, and the CEO. The woman you're about to meet took him on, and the man, the boss, had a dozen lawyers at his side. But all the women had the EEOC. Here's Sarah James.
There's no comparison. It's like night and day. Yeah.
There's no way to compare what happened to Janae Adrian 4 years ago to her life today.
You can't put something so bad next to something so good.
What's important now is her newborn baby.
He makes the funniest faces.
But not long ago, she was in a bitter battle against a major corporation and its powerful boss. It all started here at Dell Labs when Adrian was promoted to executive assistant to the CEO. Just 22 years old, she jumped at the chance, despite rumors that this boss was difficult.
Very often women would be crying in the bathroom because of the things he said, and I couldn't believe that anyone could say anything to anybody that would get them that upset at work.
So at that time you thought, maybe it's them.
Yeah, how bad could it be?
She said she would soon find out. Not only was her new boss critical of her work, she says she was mortified by comments about her appearance.
He had said in front of a group of people at one time that I was so fat I should be holding another elephant's tail in a circus ring.
Adrian says it was a daily onslaught, from personal insults to profanity, including an especially vulgar word for part of a woman's body.
He used the C word. He used the F word.
In what way would he use these words?
I can say that, he did call me a dumb C several times.
What do you tell him?
In the beginning, she didn't know what to do. This was her first big job, and her boss was an industry legend. So initially, she blamed herself.
I guess in some way I felt like I was letting him down, and that's almost...
You started to feel like you were deserving of this kind of language?
So I just accepted it.
That is, she says, until the day her boss went too far.
I was standing up, speaking with him, going over his calendar, and from out of nowhere, he just reached over and grabbed my breasts.
Did he say anything when you did this?
No, he didn't say anything.
What did you do?
I said, don't touch me, nobody ever touches me, don't ever do that again. I was very upset by it.
Janae Adrian's former boss is this man, Daniel Wasong. Wasong runs Dell Labs, a $190 million corporation with more than 1,000 employees. Ironically, Wasong has built his career making products for women. Among his success stories are Sally Hansen nail care products and Naturistics Cosmetics. Wasong is divorced and lives in a luxurious apartment here in the Carlisle Hotel in Manhattan, just one of his 3 homes, which include this bungalow in the Tony, Long Island community of Southampton and a winter getaway in this exclusive club in West Palm Beach. Wasong earned that lifestyle not only as the CEO of Dell, he's the president, the chairman of the board, and the company's largest stockholder. No one, but no one, is more powerful.
This was the CEO.
Your boss was the boss. Where do you turn?
There's nowhere to turn. I knew that.
But that didn't mean that Janae Adrian had given up. After a year at Dell, the abuse had taken its toll, and she was ready to fight.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. I didn't even know if I could. I just knew I was going to do something.
What she did was call lawyer after lawyer, only to be referred to what she considered the most unlikely ally of all, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
The EEOC, Clarence Thomas. No, that's wrong. That's backwards.
All she knew about the EEOC was what she'd heard about its former chairman, Clarence Thomas. Like the rest of America, she'd watched him on television in his Supreme Court hearings, denying Anita Hill's allegations of sexual harassment.
Thomas told me graphically of his own sexual prowess.
It is a high-tech lynching.
He's not here anymore. He's not here anymore.
Gilbert Casellas is the current EEOC chairman. His office agreed to investigate the complaint. But did Janae Adrian have a case? With the word of a 23-year-old secretary pulled up next to the word of a respected CEO who had the resources of a multi-million-dollar corporation behind him? What Daniel Wasong was about to discover was that the young woman he had hired had resources of her own. You did your homework.
Yes.
In her final months at Dell, Adrian quietly assembled what she thought she needed to file a lawsuit against her boss. She kept records, copied Wasong's daybook.
Right, I didn't want people to say I was out of town that day. That couldn't happen.
And she made notes, lots of notes, of every incident and every detail.
This is in your own hand. Mr. Wasong often pulled his zipper down in front of me and would say, "Come here, I want to show you something." Or, "Come on, do what you're supposed to." I always walked away. Do you remember what that felt like?
Yes, I do.
You're feeling it right now.
What are you thinking? I guess it was just part of the degradation that I felt.
That pain and humiliation, Janae Adrian says, motivated her to work even harder. She She says she suspected that what had happened to her had happened to others. But to how many? After dozens of telephone calls, her detective work would pay off. In the months to come, a steady stream of former Wasong employees would come forward. First, there was one, and then another, and 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 another.
It was always unbelievable that, they'd say the same exact thing. And, oh my God, that happened to me too.
And as it turned out, the stories these women had about Daniel Wasong went back years, although they sound as if they'd worked within days of each other.
You got there in the morning and prayed that he wouldn't be in that day. You didn't know if there was going to be a phone flying next to your head and just whacked me really hard. He grabbed my buttocks as he walked by.
Go put your pants on.
And I was shocked.
And he laughed and went into the other room and dressed himself.
Did you think, my gosh, we have to win?
Oh yes, I did believe that. I just thought, there's so many women, they're how could nobody believe us?
But it was still the word of secretaries versus a wealthy and well-connected CEO. In fact, a man whose high society female friends would come out in his defense. Dell wasn't about to take these allegations lying down and would hire 4 prominent law firms to fight the charges. This was shaping up as a major battle. The power the secretaries seemed to once have was no longer a sure thing.
When we come back, the secretaries versus the CEO. Who's going to win the battle? Stay with us for the conclusion of the story. Return out of our story. A bunch of women have come forward to say that Daniel Wasson of Dell Labs sexually harassed them, all of them. From the stories you're about to hear from all these women, it's like an all-out boxing match, with companies determined to fight the charges. Again, Sarah James.
Dell Labs attorneys would eventually conduct their own investigation. An investigation, they say, reveals a very different picture of the man at the top, Daniel Wasong. In a letter to Dateline, they say Daniel Wasong has unrelenting drive, determination, and exacting standards, and that his management style and personality created a demanding, but not sexually harassing, work atmosphere. We put that very point to the women who worked for Wasong.
Dan Wasong had a reputation of being difficult. People who went to work for him were told that he was difficult.
I hate that word.
You hate that word?
Yes, I do.
We're very open to interpretation.
Definitely. Yeah, difficult to me means, a hard worker, an ambitious man or a woman, an executive, a real high-powered kind of an individual, not a pig. And Dan Wasson is a pig.
Lisa Spoor and the rest of these women say working for Wasong was the worst job they ever had. They say on a typical day at Dell, Wasong would arrive, chauffeur-driven, around 2 in the afternoon.
But he did start on the phone at like
8:30 every morning.
That's when it started. He would start telling you what you had effed up the day before. And that's what he said. You did it again, you effed it up.
Swearing is a part of many workplaces.
Not mine.
There's swearing in a lot of office places. Swearing is not sexual harassment.
But general
In and of itself.
when it's directed to an
General
individual.
swearing, like you say, I screwed up with something, but not directly towards you, time and time again. When he starts to call you an effing moron and using the wonderful C word and terrible derogatory comments like that are gender-based, then it becomes sexual harassment.
Such is the way Robin Cohen says Wasong would ask her to do things.
Instead of saying, Robin, come in here, to say, C word, get in here, I want to go over something with you. And that one didn't go on once, but it was relentless.
Let me do a show of hands for a moment here. How many of you did Dan Wasong call the C word?
Wasong, seen here stirring a vat of lipstick, declined our repeated requests for an interview. But Dell's attorneys tell us, in this demanding but not sexually harassing work atmosphere, Wasong also insists on perfection and is particularly critical of mistakes. None of the women here would argue with that, but they say they're outraged at the way Wasong would criticize them.
I was called an effing moron. He wanted to know if I was raised in a circus, that I was stupid, that how was I raised, what kind of parents did I have to raise someone like me?
Aren't you done with lunch yet? Haven't you looked in the mirror lately?
Right.
You don't need lunch.
Do you think that he made comments about weight ever to men?
Oh, no.
Never heard it.
No.
How about his tirades? Were they directed at men too? Did he call them you effing moron?
Not that I've seen, no. I never witnessed any. The tirades I witnessed were against women.
By law, the EEOC must investigate all claims of sexual harassment before it takes any legal action. Investigators there say they found story after story of lewd behavior that went all the way back to Hwasong's early days at Dell. When Susan Lewis worked at Dell, Hwasong was only a vice president.
I was 19, and we were a group of young secretaries, and he would walk around the office scratching himself, adjusting himself.
That was in 1965. That's right, 30 years ago. Susan Lewis says back then, they didn't know what to call his behavior.
I guess if he was being sexual, it was lost on us. We were just very young and innocent at that time, and we used to laugh and say that he must have fleas. We were going to put a can of flea and tick spray on his desk for Christmas or something, you know.
But Lewis, who posed for ads for Dell products, says even back then, she knew when Hwasong was over the line.
One day I was at the files, and my back was to him, and he came around and just whacked me really hard on my rear end and said, "You're getting fat." And then he just laughed.
4 years later, in 1969, Hwasong was promoted to Chief Executive Officer. Colleen Wright was Hwasong's executive secretary 13 years later.
I went in blind. I had been placed by an agency, told that I'd be working for somebody difficult. And I was going to conquer the task, you know.
It was 1982. At the time, she was a single mother supporting 2 young children.
He'd say, well, you know, your job would be a lot easier if you would just, you know, go along with what I want.
What did he want?
He would say, I have some friends coming over tomorrow night, why don't you come? We'll be here at 8 o'clock. I'm like, no.
8 years later, in 1990, Lisa Spoor took the job.
He gets up, walks around from behind his desk, takes the pocket calendar out of his jacket, which was laying on the chair, puts it in his hip pocket, and tells me to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Go get it. That's right.
Retrieve it from his pants pocket.
I told him I would not do it.
Robin Cohen followed Lisa Spoor.
My story was the open fly story also, which I think happened to a couple of us.
New to the job, at first Cohen says she gave Hwasong the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe the man forgot to zip his fly. But when it happens to you 3 times in 9 days, you begin to wonder if it's not an accident anymore.
And Mary Dixon was working for Hwasong when the lawsuit was filed in 1992.
When we were cleaning up after lunch one day, I walked by the bathroom, and there he was urinating with the bathroom door open.
Was it an accident?
No, this was all the time. He never closed the bathroom door. Never.
I had the same experience.
Did you say anything to him about it?
No, I just did
a pound face and walked away.
But why not? I mean, this is so inappropriate. Tell him when he calls you the C word. You're across the line, buddy. How dare you? Why was it so tough to speak up to Dan Hwasong?
Because even when you did say something to him, he turned around and told you, if you don't like it, leave.
One of the things that you think is that it will end, and you will be the one to change this person. Somehow by doing excellent work, and you keep seeking approval.
You were afraid of what he was going to do to you if you said something to him. There was so much fear in that office. It was incredible. You were afraid of him.
He was the chairman, president, and CEO when I worked for him. So where are you going to go? That somebody doesn't report to him, that somebody doesn't have their paycheck or their raise signed off by him.
Some of these women worked for Hwasong longer than others. Mary Dixon, the longest of all, 19 months.
Why did you stick it out for such a long time?
I needed the money. I had a mortgage to pay.
As for the rest,
I was only there a month.
And I just said, I can't do this. I just won't. I worked for Dan for 5 months.
On and off for about 2 months. 2.5 months.
2 months.
9 days.
in fact, they say almost every secretary who ever worked in the front office didn't stay for long.
Was it a revolving door?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
36 secretaries in 36 months.
36 secretaries.
Before I had gotten there and from the time I left. There was times where they were going through 3 a week.
Leaving the security of a full-time job was one thing, but these women say the emotional toll of working in that kind of environment day after day turned out to be far greater.
I lost all of my self-esteem. I didn't know if I was capable of going out and getting another job. He had just beaten me down to a point where I was a nothing and a nobody. I had stomach problems. I couldn't eat anything without getting indigestion and heartburn.
And even after 30 years, Susan Lewis says the experience with Hwasong is etched in her memory.
That it may not seem so terrible to the viewers listening to it, so I got smacked, big deal. But it was something that I never forgot, and then it bothered me. I can't say it ruined my life, you know, it did, but it bothered me all this time.
In July of 1994, almost 2 years after the initial complaint, the EEOC officially filed a lawsuit against Dell Labs and Daniel Hwasong. Chairman Casellas says the number of women, the variety of stories, and the length of time made the case.
If you just took one little incident and said, well, that's standing alone, and you called her a name, gosh, that happens all the time in the workplace. That doesn't rise to the level of sexual harassment, does it? No, but let's look at the whole pattern. Let's look at a period of time.
You're talking about then an atmosphere, a culture of harassment.
It's an environment, and the law recognizes a hostile environment. That's exactly right.
And when the story hit the papers, the case grew even bigger. Due to a statute of limitations, only 15 women would be named in the lawsuit, but in the end, many more emerged.
How many women were willing to come forward?
45 were willing to come forward.
45 is an astonishing number.
It's unprecedented in our experience.
And not long after the lawsuit was filed, Dell Labs contacted the EEOC to discuss bringing an end to the case. In August of this year, Chairman Casellas called a news conference to announce that Dell had agreed to settle out of court. It was at this news conference that Dell Labs made its only public statement.
This is a settlement. There's been no finding of wrongdoing by the court at all.
Dell attorney Mark Dichter explained that the settlement is in no way an admission of guilt or that Dell was in violation of any laws. Dell chose to settle, he says, to avoid a costly legal battle and unfounded, unwanted publicity.
Sir, are you telling us that these women are lying?
I'm not saying that. I'm telling you that the company has denied all of the allegations.
But in settling, Dell Labs agreed to pay $1.2 million to the 15 women named in the suit, the largest settlement in EEOC history. Dell also agreed to revise its sexual harassment policy and retrain its executives, including Mr. Hwasong.
We knew the odds weren't, always so great. However, we were strong.
The woman who led the charge, Janae Adrian, says the settlement speaks for itself.
Wake up. Women are not going to take it. If you really don't think it's a big deal and it happens, and believe me, it will become a big deal.
Is she a bit of a hero to all of you?
Yes, I think so, yes.
She's pretty cool.
And what about the man in the center of the lawsuit, Daniel Hwasong? Where is he today? Exactly where he's always been, heading to work, to the same job he's had for the past 26 years.
Dan Hwasong is still the CEO.
Yeah, he is.
He still has his job.
He should be removed. He should be removed.
Do you feel strongly about that?
Oh, sure. A person like this shouldn't have that kind of position.
You produce products for women, and you treat women this way?
This August, Dell's board of directors unanimously agreed with its attorneys that there had been no sexual harassment and that Hwasong should remain
anonymous. We probably won't know because nobody else knew. When we come back, another story. This time it's all about reading, writing, and being right. From one school district here in Texas. So stay with us. Over 30 years ago, Lamar Alexander Poe had a study with some startling results. A quarter of all kids couldn't correctly add up the cost of a soup, a hamburger, and a soda. A third of teenagers couldn't even do 7th grade math. And the school you're about to visit, we told you about this last season. As we first told you about this 2 years ago, it was a cause for celebration. But as you're about to see, the school and the principal were treated like outcasts. Here's Chris Wallace.
It's 7:30 a.m. at Houston's Wesley Elementary School. Principal Thaddeus Lott, as he has for the past 16 years, is making sure things run his way.
Watch where you're going, you don't let mine.
Wesley is old and overcrowded. Students 95% black and 99% poor. But if you have any preconceptions about inner-city schools, check them at the door. Everywhere Lott takes you in his school, there's a surprise.
Geography in kindergarten?
You're kidding.
No, not at all.
For instance, Miss Kinney's kindergarten class, where 5-year-olds recite all 50 states without looking at a map.
Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut.
Okay, now think about this.
We're doing this from memory. I'm not sure I could do this. You find children doing special work in every classroom. These first graders are doing 3rd grade math, learning to multiply by 9. These 5th graders read Shakespeare and Steinbeck and compare and contrast.
And this was about lady about a wife and a man.
Over the past decade, Wesley has been one of Houston's best performing schools. In 1988, it ranked in the top quarter of all elementary schools in Texas, with children consistently doing work up to 2 years ahead of their grade level. What makes this so remarkable is that Wesley sits in one of Houston's toughest neighborhoods, Acres Home. But Thaddeus Lott has lived here all his 57 years, and he says whatever goes on outside of school, there's no reason his students must fail. You ask a lot of the children here, don't you?
Yes. I believe the children can do a lot. Once you get them into a setting where they feel like they can and they know that you believe in them and you have faith in them, then they rise to the occasion.
Potato, what word is? Potato. Spell the whole word is?
In Mrs. Alexander's 1st grade class, you see the Lott method. Teachers actively engaging children in rapid-fire drills, lots of repetition, and grading every day in every subject. These children are learning to break down words into sounds and syllables.
Now, how many do you hear?
I hear 3 vowels already worked on my tongue.
It may look like these children are learning, but Houston school administrators don't think so. They consider this kind of teaching old-fashioned, with too much memorization and too little independent creative thinking. But Lott has thrown out the official curriculum, saying that for these children, his system works.
It says A is.
They're going over vowel sounds, they're going over combinations of vowel sounds. We're plugging them into a system that I'll guarantee at the end of the year, this youngster will be reading.
Wesley students seem genuinely excited about what they're accomplishing. You like working hard in school?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's fun learning and reading, because reading helps you all the way through your life.
The Wesley School would seem to be a classic success story, a model of how much inner-city children can achieve. Which is why what's happened here the last few years is so puzzling. Because far from being the toast of the Houston School District, Thaddeus Lott and his teachers say they have been undercut at every turn.
They're hostile to Wesley. They're hostile to the building principal.
Gail Fallon, who runs the Houston Teachers Federation, says school bureaucrats have declared war on Thaddeus Lott because he ignores their guidelines. She says resentment is so deep at district headquarters that for years, officials there have accused the school of cheating to get its strong test scores.
We've had them come in and say, we think they're cheating at Wesley. Can you find out how they're doing it?
Just that directly?
Just that directly. They're not subtle about it.
District officials have investigated Wesley repeatedly in recent years, but no cheating has ever been found.
I was in tears because I was upset. I didn't know what was going on.
1st grade teacher India Williams was involved in the latest incident a few weeks ago, when 2 officials from the Houston School District walked into her classroom and accused her of feeding answers to her students on a national test. They searched her classroom for hours, but found nothing.
I didn't know these people, I had never done anything, and I was just, singled out.
Why the suspicion?
I think they suspect them because they are poor black children. And because in the mindset in the administration, they don't believe poor black children can outperform suburban white children, and they are doing it, and they are doing it routinely.
Ms. Fallon, you're making a very serious charge.
Right.
You're basically accusing the school district, the top administrators, of racism.
Yes. I think probably racism of the worst kind. It's not even conscious racism. It's a racism of lowering your expectations for minority students.
That's totally fallacious. It's absolutely not true.
Dr. Joan Raymond has been Houston's superintendent of schools since 1986. She strongly rejects the charge of racism and insists Wesley School has never been undercut.
This administration is committed to the improvement of education for all children, and particularly minority children, and the record stands on its own. Mr. Lott has been very, very highly supported by this administration. Absolutely.
But don't tell that to parents in Acres Home, who say they've had enough of the harassment and suspicion from district headquarters.
This is not the first time. They have accused this school of cheating before. But when they come out about the teacher, that was the last straw.
The community even voiced its anger in church.
We understand that they would rather the best schools be in an affluent area. But the bottom line is, gold is gold. I don't care where you find it. Even if it's an extra home.
Thaddeus Lott says he too is getting fed up with administrators who don't believe poor black children can succeed.
There are people like this in every big city throughout this country who feel like if you're doing what we're doing, even though it works, it doesn't matter. It's just against their philosophy.
Thinking caps on.
And these people have no place. They should not be making a salary at the expense of these youngsters who will ultimately wind up illiterate. And that's what's happening all over this country.
Lott says it's more than just the allegations of cheating, that the bureaucrats have picked on Wesley for years. These kindergarten students write every day in workbooks. The school district complained they were using too much paper.
Capital of Illinois.
And remember those kids learning their states? Well, the maps were provided by a private donor because the bureaucrats won't pay for them. According to the official supply list, children this young don't need maps.
I have no idea what you're talking about. And I am totally unaware of any curriculum anywhere that says maps cannot be used.
But we showed Dr. Raymond a copy of the school district guidelines, school supply list. It says, no maps below the 3rd grade.
I don't need to look at it. I'm simply telling you that there is a curriculum in place. I don't even support that kind of a statement, and I don't even know why it's in there.
More than 100 Houston schools get help from corporate sponsors provided by the school district. In some cases, thousands of dollars in money and supplies. But for some reason, Wesley has been shut out of that program. How many companies have you sent to the Wesley school?
I don't know the answer to your question.
What if I told you the answer was 0?
Well, I guess I'll just have to ask my staff why. I guess we'll also have to ask why there probably has been no request coming in from the school.
In fact, the school has repeatedly requested a business sponsor, without success. Last year, Houston's Tax Research Association, a government watchdog group, went around the school district straight to Wesley. They needed help. They needed some immediate help. George Scott says his group raised $10,000 for the school to buy paper and workbooks and maps. And he says he sent a blunt warning to the school district, backing Wesley's principal.
You better stop messing with this man. He has powerful friends now, and we want people like Thaddeus Lott to be able to educate the children and to have the support which they deserve.
First word, your turn.
Despite all of this, Superintendent Raymond maintains she's well aware of the remarkable work children do at Wesley, work that's been praised on the front pages of Houston's newspapers. And she maintains she has a good relationship with the principal.
He likes to do things his own way, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Some people say I like to do things my own way, too. That's why we get along so well.
You do get along well, sure.
Absolutely. I'm a big supporter of Thaddeus.
Up until October 1990, she had never been at school.
She had been the superintendent here for 4 years, and she'd never come to visit Wesley?
No.
Why did it take you 4 years to set foot in school?
There's absolutely no answer to that. I can assure you that it was not deliberate. Time does fly when you're in a job like this.
Didn't you ever just want to go over and pat them on the back and frankly see how their program works?
He has been patted on the back a lot.
I know that's not what she really thinks. That's not what she says privately about Mr. Locke. She said, oh, he's just a clown. He's looking for a promotion. It's not real. That SOB is doing nothing but trying to move up in the system.
She has said that?
Yes.
It's not so. It's absolutely not so. I have not ever made such a statement. It's simply not true.
What's certainly true is that the school district doesn't think much of Locke. Almost every week, out-of-town educators come to study his school. But the Houston School District has never asked him to train its teachers, and never in 16 years offered him a promotion.
I'm going to say that if I were another color, I wouldn't be sitting for 16 years, not even 5, having done what we've done. Call it whatever you want to.
If you were white, the response to you would have been different. In Akers' home, Lott has become a symbol of the anger people feel here. Anger towards highly paid bureaucrats who refuse to believe in their children.
Children who are thought not to be able to achieve can blow your mind because God has given every one of us a brain. And brains are not white, black, or brown.
And so Thaddeus Lott intends to stay on at Wesley School, continuing to ignore the administrators downtown and to teach his students his way.
We have too many people who have low expectations of children. Too many people who really don't think that children in a setting like this even have the brains or ability to learn.
And what is the truth about those kids?
The truth about them is that they can learn. And that's what we're proving.
A final note. Next Monday is Dr. Joan Raymond's last day as Houston School Superintendent. She was forced to resign over a variety of issues not directly related to the Wesley School. So far, no replacement has been named, and a lot of Wesley supporters don't think this necessarily means that the school's troubles are over.
That's all for Throwback Thursday. We'll be back again in 2 weeks for another edition of Throwback Thursday. And we'll see you for a special Give Make Friday all about stranger danger. And on Saturday, how can you defend yourself in America or wherever you live in? We're going to give you some hints and tips. For all of us here at YouTube, good night.